synthesize them together as though they are equivalent, really. It's a theological mistake, but it's also a mistake of hospitality. The king owes his Christian subjects more than to enter into this fiction, and it's profoundly difficult for anyone who's close to suffering communities.
He talks so much about different faiths and religions. It almost seems as though he doesn't have his own religion. It's almost as though he subscribes to all of these religions. He goes that far. We do know that there was a conversation, wasn't there, about whether he was the defender of the faith or faiths plural, and hints that he was moving towards the faiths plural. I mean, it does seem as though he sort of just wants to be a part of every religion. I'm afraid that's partly true. We have to do a little bit of theology. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. And the reason for that is no other religion teaches God as a father. It's a uniquely Christian thing. All religions have things in common and share ethics. But at Easter, he should be saying this is what's special about Christianity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. The leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, will be here in the studio. What does she make of the lack of NHS guidance following the Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman, following her punchy PMQ's performance this week? I'll also be joined by the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, as the government announces that they have cut NHS waiting lists by almost 50,000 in deprived areas. Are you feeling the benefits? Former senior NATO official Nicholas Williams will be here in the studio to reflect on President Trump and President Zelensky's meeting in Rome yesterday. Could a peace deal finally be agreed? Conservative peer, businessman and author Lloyd Moynihan will join me after the IMF slashed the UK's growth forecast earlier this week. What impact does he think President Trump's tariffs are going to have continuing on the economy? And in a new development this week, cyclists who kill pedestrians by acting dangerously on the roads could face full life sentences. Gerard Griffiths, whose mother Hilda was killed by a cyclist in 2022, will join me to reflect on what this law change might mean for them. As ever, we've got 90 minutes of punchy British politics to come, so do not even think of going anywhere. Well, first, joining me now to review the Sunday front pages is the Chief Executive of Labour Together, former Labour MP, Jonathan Ashworth.
Hello, good morning.
It's lovely to see you in this capacity, not grilling you down the line, but just having a chat about the newspapers. And I've realised I don't even have my list here, so I need to refer... Let's share a list.
Let's share.
I've left it in the green room.
Let's share the list.
Obviously, on the front of all of the pages, front pages, is this extraordinary picture of Trump and Zelensky at the Vatican. I mean, just pictorially, it's astonishing. But also, we think that there would be brush-bys and things. I don't think we anticipated a 15-minute chat between these two world leaders, did we?
No, and you're right. These photos, they are absolutely extraordinary. The front page of every newspaper, probably the photo of the year, really, and it just shows you why photography or photojournalism is still so important. This is definitely a photo that will go down in history. Let's hope that this discussion between Donald Trump and Zelensky does lead to peace. We don't know where we're going to get to. Of course, Donald Trump has also put out this message on his own social media channel, now being very critical of Putin, which has been surprising because he's been, people have different opinions on this, but people think he has been a bit too close to Putin's view on these matters, don't they? And it does look like the White House is shifting. But look, there's been a lot of false dawns in this, hasn't there, in recent weeks and months. So let's see where we get to. But we all hope we can get peace in that part of the world. It
looks more cordial, at least, than the Oval Office scenes that played out weeks ago. What's your analysis of Trump? Because when you were in the Labour Party, I mean, you weren't as vocally critical of Trump as others.
No, because, I'm always much more of a pragmatic kind of guy and a much more diplomatic sort of guy on these issues. Look, I think... It seems pretty clear to me that Keir Starmer has built a rapport with Donald Trump. He does seem to have an in there, which I think is a bit surprising. I remember coming on, programmes ahead of Donald Trump's election with interviewers putting to me that it was all going to be very difficult for Keir Starmer. This is going to be terrible. Keir Starmer's worked really hard to build up a good working relationship. They hope, the Downing Street hope they can get progress on trade and deal with this issue of tariffs, because in the end, tariffs is not going to help anybody, really. I mean, I think Donald Trump is wrong if he thinks that tariffs is going to be good for his economy. Yeah. I think in the end it's going to hurt working people in the US, and it's certainly going to hit our economy as well. So, look, let's hope that our government can get a better deal on these issues.
Do you think we'll get a trade deal?
I think we'll make progress. I mean, there's different versions of, there's different levels of intricacies in trade deals. And I mean, we might not necessarily get a full-on trade deal, but let's hope we make progress. I mean, the US is an important partner for us. We do export services there. But look, we've also got to think about the EU. This is not a message to say let's undo Brexit, not at all. But
let's hope not.
No, it's not. But we obviously export a lot to the EU as well.
True.
So you've got to get a deal which works for all of the trading partners that you have.
All right, let's move on to another story in the Mail on Sunday. Lord Ashcroft has written yet another book, Red Flag. It's about your former Labour colleagues, and apparently Angela Rayner, who I know you're good friends with, is repeatedly threatening to quit because she doesn't think that the government can meet its 1.5 million housing target.
Well, I would eat my hat if Angela Rayner
we will get you a hat served on a silver platter.
Quit the cabinet. I think I'm a big fan of Angela Rayner. I think she's fantastic. I mean, I am friends with her as well, but I mean, I think she's brilliant, and she's got a big agenda. She's got to build houses, and yes, that is a very stretching target, 1.5 million.
Will you achieve it? I mean, otherwise it's another broken promise, isn't it? And you've accused the Conservatives of broken promises. Well,
they've got to achieve it. I mean, it's not me anymore.
I know it's not. I say by association, Jonathan, as you are still really a Labour man through and through, and who knows, you may stand again.
Well, let's see what happens there. I've not had a good record on that recently. But look, this government's got to build houses. I mean, there'll be so many of your viewers who are just trapped out of the dream of home ownership because we've been so useless as a country for years now at building houses and helping people onto the problem.
Yeah, of course. Isn't it?
It's a long-term problem. This government wants to fix it. It's going to get rid of quite a lot of the bureaucracy, the red tape around the planning rules, which has held back house building and infrastructure, infrastructure building. What this government's got, which, the Tories tried to do some of this, but of course a lot of the Conservative MPs opposed it themselves. So I think it was Boris. I can't remember if it was Boris.
All MPs opposed it.
Yeah, but these Labour MPs,
constituencies.
These Labour MPs will vote through these planning changes, and we'll get houses built.
So we don't think Angela Rayner's going anywhere fast.
I'll eat my hat.
We will be serving you a hat if it happens, just to say that. Let's move on to your friends in Reform and the Tories, because we've got a couple of stories here. Well, Kemi Badenoch's coming in shortly. She's going to be in the studio after you. She's done quite a few interviews, so she's on a charm offensive, I would suggest. The polls are
more offensive than charming, I suspect, but anyway. Bum.
Good luck seeing her in the green room on the way out. And secondly, we have a situation where the polls don't look particularly favourable for the Labour Party either, for the local elections. Reform are storming ahead. We now hear from the Sunday Telegraph, £1 million Reform donation. It's a defection from the Tories to Reform. A donor has given them £1 million. You've got to admit that of all of the political leaders, Farage has got the momentum, hasn't he?
Yes. I think Reform are going to do really well.
Do you think they'll hoover up Labour voters as well as Tories?
So when you look at the polling, in my day job now, we do a lot of polling. There's no question that there are Labour voters shifting to Reform, no question. Yeah. But it is still, the lion's share is still coming from mainly ex-Tories. So whereas it's definitely a problem for Labour, it really is, but it's existential for the Tories.
But what kind of Labour voter do you think is opting for Reform? Is it your kind of red waller who switched to Boris Johnson in 2019? Is it your kind of white van man? Who do you? What's the appeal of Farage to a Labourite when you consider that, by definition, Labourites are meant to be lefties and he's very much a righty?
Well, I think in the end, this is where I think Labour do have an opportunity, and I think Nigel Farage will come a cropper, because things he said in the past around different models for the NHS where people, if you can afford it, would have to pay, some of the sort of right-wing economic positions he's taken, they're not what the Labour voters of Barnsley and Bolsover are looking for. So at the moment, Nigel Farage is touring all these sorts of constituencies, even sort of claiming that he was pro the miners' strike and he liked certain trade union leaders. Look, you know, I'm from the north. People aren't daft. They can smell. They can smell kidology a mile off.
Having said that, I was intrigued at the last Labour conference as to how many union people were sort of going to right-wing events, I would say, you know, the Spectator Party and others, talking about how unhappy they were with Labour over, for instance, oil and gas licences in the North Sea, the idea that people are going to lose their jobs who work in the industrialised industries. I mean, he's got a point, hasn't he, if he channels his sort of inner J.D. Vance and tries to turn Reform into some kind of working man and women's party.
But I don't think he can in the end, because of his views on the NHS, when he's talked about introducing child. I mean, people don't want to pay 10 grand for a hip replacement. That's Nigel Farage's policy. I mean, I think that's a problem for him. And also, look, you've got all these Tories saying, like Robert Jenrick said it the other day, didn't he? Let's have some sort of alliance or some sort of deal with Reform. If Labour voters think at the next election that I don't actually think Kemi Badenoch will last the next election, but whoever the Tory leader is going to go in and do a deal
We'll
with...
ask her that in a moment.
Yeah, well, she's thinking without trace. But, you know, a deal of
Well, she's not thinking without trace. Let's move on.
Farage and them lot in a coalition. Labour voters won't want that.
Let's move on to your, well, I suppose, successor in a way, Wes Streeting, who's the Health Secretary, because she was Shadow Health. He's given an interview. I mean, he's talking about Nigel and Kemi being like alien versus predator, but I'm a bit more interested, actually, in his view on trans in light of the Supreme Court ruling. Now, Streeting has always been pretty solid on saying that trans women aren't women.
Yeah.
Starmer claims to be saying that he once said that, but he didn't say that, but he did, didn't he? I mean, Starmer, you must admit, you as a practical man who has, I think, good common sense and a former Shadow Health Secretary, so you presumably do understand biology, Starmer and co really got this wrong, didn't they, when they suggested things like women could have penises. We had David Lammy suggesting that a man could grow a cervix. It's embarrassing, in retrospect, isn't it?
I mean, I wouldn't have said what David said there. But look, Wes has got... look, first of all, Wes is one of Labour's sort of star players on the pitch. You know, to have a big write-up in the Sun and Sunday is important for a Labour politician ahead of a set of local elections.
This man is on manoeuvres.
I'm not suggesting his manoeuvres. I'm saying he's a good political operator, and I like a good political operator. I think he's one of, as I say, he's one of our star players, and he's right. He's right to say that, you know, to absolutely endorse the court. Of course, he would endorse it anyway. As you say, that was his position pre the court ruling, but he's now got to bring forward guidance for the NHS. When I was the Shadow Health Secretary, by the way, one of the campaigns I used to run was the fact that that Tory government had not got rid of mixed-sex wards. I used to run that campaign regularly.
But why hasn't the NHS already, you know, we've had, say, for instance, the British Transport Police and other bodies come out and say, we've heard the Supreme Court, we were misinterpreting the law as it stood, we are now perfectly clear, here's the new guidance. The NHS is dragging its heels on it. I mean, it's really important. It couldn't be more important, could it? The hospital sphere and men identifying as women accessing female-only spaces.
Yeah, but he's saying he's bringing forward this guidance in the next couple of weeks, the next few weeks. So he's getting on with it. He's literally got his sleeves rolled up and he's getting on with the job.
All right, but do you agree with me that when Keir Starmer pretends that he always thought that women were women and men were men, he didn't, did he?
I'm a very loyal member of the Labour Party.
I know, but will you agree with me that he's slightly fibbing in suggesting, I was always saying that women were adult human females?
Well, he has said that.
But he also said trans women are women.
He did say that women are adult females. He has said that.
Final, very quick question. As a party man, even if not a Labour MP at the moment, he should apologise to your former colleague, Rosie Duffield, shouldn't he?
I hope we can get to an arrangement where Rosie comes back into the Labour Party. I think the Labour Party is weaker if it doesn't have people like Rosie Duffield in it.
Amen to that. Jonathan Ashworth, thank you very much. A great paper review. We hope to see you again. Hopefully not eating a hat, though. Let's see. Well, coming up next, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, is going to join me in the studio. We're also going to bring you up to date with that horrific incident in Vancouver with our Home and Security editor, Mark White. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. High pressure is in charge mainly across Europe at the moment, but its positioning is leading to some slightly different conditions. Out across Iberia, there's plentiful amounts of sunshine and a really lovely day to come tomorrow in particular. There are some showers, though, lingering around Italy, parts of the Balkans, just to watch out for. And there's quite a keen breeze developing from the Black Sea down through into the Aegean, so it is going to be quite fresh along some of those Greek islands. But with high pressure sticking around, it is going to be remaining fairly settled into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back. The leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, joins me now in the studio. Lovely to see you this morning. Can I just say we did ask other leaders. We asked Labour, Lib Dems and indeed Reform. You decided to come on, so thank you. All credit to you. Now, I know you've been up and down the length and breadth of the country. How's it looking? Because you're in expectation management mode, aren't you? You want to tell me that you're going to do very, 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 very badly on Thursday in a bid to look better.
No, what I'm telling people is that it's not an opinion poll, that this is about who's going to run local services. I've been, as you say, everywhere, Warwickshire, Gloucestershire, Oxfordshire, and I'm listening to what people on the doorsteps are saying. They are still very angry, but this time they're not angry with Conservatives, they're angry with Labour. Labour has let them down. They're very angry about the winter fuel payment. Every other doorstep, and it's not just pensioners, it's their children, their grandchildren are angry about it. And I'm telling them that this is a chance to send Labour a message. If you vote for other parties, Labour slips through the middle. You look at what's happened in Birmingham, rubbish all over the streets, not being collected, rats running around. And you have to vote Conservative because we deliver better services for lower taxes across the board.
Although the latest polling puts, this is the Spectator poll of polls, Reform on 25, Labour on 23, Tory on 22, Lib Dems on 14, Greens on 9. I mean, this whole third place thing, you are being outgunned by Farage. You have to admit that. And also he is cutting through, isn't he? He's this big personality on the front pages of the newspapers.
Well, I'm on the front pages of the newspapers too. But the thing is, people are in a protest mood right now. So protest parties do well this side of the electoral cycle. 4 years ago, Keir Starmer had a horrific election. That was when we were polling high, middle of the vaccine bounds. He was completely written off. Today, he is Prime Minister. So the elections shouldn't be used as an opinion poll. People should not vote for them in that way. I need to make sure that I fix my party. People are very disillusioned, and I'm letting them know that the Conservative Party is under new leadership. No more of what was happening in the past, no more of the infighting and all of the rows. It's the other parties who are having all these rows and infighting.
All right.
But also reminding them that what we do is for them. It's not for us. We're delivering for the public.
I get that a week is a long time in politics and anything can change. Nigel Farage has put his chances of being the next Prime Minister at 45%. Where would you put your chances?
I don't speculate. I don't play guess the number. You know, he likes to talk about himself. I like to talk about what I want to do for the people of this country. Just get Britain moving again. Let's fix the things that aren't working.
All right, but you're saying it's a marathon and not a sprint. Probably a fitting term to use on today of all days. And good luck to all of those people running, mad as I consider them to be. But we have got the Scottish and the Welsh elections next year. So this idea that you're not in a hurry, you have to be in a hurry because, you know, at the end of the day, the Tories, as far as I can tell, are still facing somewhat of an existential crisis, aren't they?
We have been, we are in the aftermath of a historic defeat. We've never had so few MPs. Of course, it's going to take time. The last opposition was there 14 years, the one before that 13 years, the one before that 18 years. I've been leader 5.5 months, coming up to 6 months. You don't turn things around like that. And if things turn around quickly, be suspicious. It could be a flash in the pan. I am building solid foundations. Let's work out policy. When we've got the policy thought through, like indefinite leave to remain, we announce. When we have a new change of direction, net zero is impossible, we come out and announce it. But I'm not just saying things to get on the front pages of the papers or to tell people what they want to hear. I'm telling them the truth.
The counter-argument to that is you're dragging your heels on policy. You were in power for 14 years. You must have worked out, for instance, what you're going to do about immigration. Got Farage coming out this week saying, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'll have a Minister for Deportations. We will leave the ECHR. We will scrap the Human Rights Act. You might laugh. At least the voters know where they stand.
Yeah, but we already have a Minister for Deportations. We have a Home Secretary. They're the Minister for Deportations. This is what I'm talking about, just saying things. Aren't people tired of just hearing people just talk rubbish? Our country is not a TV show.
With policy,
and I have said we are going to stop that conveyor belt to British citizenship. We had a big announcement on indefinite leave to remain. I talk about it every week, that people come to this country and immediately just get fast-tracked to citizenship via indefinite leave to remain. That's how we reduce the demand. I've talked about third country deterrence. We've got to get that Rwanda plan working. That's how we fix the boats. So we do have policies. But what I'm not going to do is treat our country like it's a TV show and say, hey, I'm going to have a Minister for Deportations. We already have that. Okay. That's the thing I'm talking about. Announcements are not plans. They're not policy. Policy is how you're going to do it, not just a headline in a newspaper.
All right, but will you consider some of these policies, leaving the ECHR, scrapping the Human Rights Act? Is that something that will be in your policy review?
They are already being reviewed. They're already being reviewed. But you can't just say it without knowing how you're going to do it. That's why it took so long to leave the EU after the vote, because people said we're going to do this thing and only started thinking about how to do it after the vote. That's not right.
OK. Starmer, you have said today in the Sunday Telegraph, you've written an op-ed for them, he's a coward with no moral core. This comes after you criticised him at Prime Minister's questions, basically saying he lacked balls. Do you regret those comments?
No. I don't
Some people said they were unparliamentarian.
I'm sure they do. They also say saying someone is telling a lie is unparliamentarian.
Well, are you calling him a liar?
I speak the truth. I think it is very clear that this is a man who doesn't know what he believes. But the thing that I found most astonishing was that he could not bring himself to apologise to or even acknowledge Rosie Duffield, the MP for Canterbury, hounded out of his party with his permission. He was one of those people who was rebuking her. Now the Supreme Court has said that people like me and her were right all along. The amount of abuse that I got from Labour MPs, you would not believe the things they said. So I don't have any sympathy for them right now.
Why don't you just nail your colours to the mast and say that he's a liar? He had previously said that a woman is a female adult. In addition to that, trans women are women.
Yes.
That's not just my view, he said. That is actually the law.
Yes.
And now his spokesman has come forward and said, oh, he always believed that a
that is
woman
a lie.
was so he's a liar.
That is a lie. That is a lie. There are lots of things he says at PMQs that are not true. I can't say that he's lying there, but I can say it now. There are many things, like the ones you've just described. I talked about it in Parliament the day before. He said 99.9% of women have a penis, so one in a don't have a penis, so 1 in 1,000 do. I mean, this is just not common sense. And if somebody cannot bring themselves to speak the truth because they're worried about a mob here or their dinner party set there, then what other decisions are they making for the country? Look at what's happening with unemployment. It's rising. Taxes are rising. People are angry. You know, I told you about winter fuel payments. They're angry about that jobs tax.
And
they're
yet
not
Labour
hiring
have
people.
got the waiting list down, they claim.
They claim that
50,000
they claim that they've got the waiting list down. But this is Labour just telling people things. Let's actually look at what is happening out there. No one is happy. I've been going all around the country. No one has said, oh, I'm really glad about what Labour is doing with the NHS. They're talking about how Labour is killing their businesses. I've been on about 3 farms this week. Family farms tax, actively destroying farms.
And yet
that's going to ruin our rural communities.
And yet, you have now, I mean, we talked about earlier about a week being a long time in politics. A lot of the polling is now revealing that Tories have reclaimed their reputation for fiscal competence in the light of Rachel Reeves's rather unpopular budget. You're now seen as being comparatively more fiscally disciplined. And yet, I've got to be honest, I don't know anything about your economic policies. I don't really know what you stand for on the economy. Shouldn't you be hammering home this advantage a little stronger?
Honestly, that is what we are doing. I talk about the jobs tax constantly. I talk about the national insurance rise. We had a whole press conference on it 3 weeks ago.
What are your top 3 economic policies?
So on the economy, it's all about looking after business. It's not government that creates growth, it is business that creates growth.
What would you scrap?
So, well, I've said that we are going to scrap the family business tax that Labour has brought in, for example. But it's about creating a competitive environment. The employment rights bill that Labour's bringing in is going to be another nail in the coffin for businesses around the country.
So
we're going to
Would you
oppose
scrap
that.
corporation tax? It rose under the Conservatives. That was a massive mistake.
So, as I said, I'm not making policy on TV. There are certain things which I can say, but there are other things that need a very well thought-through plan. I can't just say stuff on the back of an envelope.
What's your instinct, for instance, about the tax burden? It's way too high.
So the tax burden is way too high. That is something that I've said again and again and again. And those are the things that we got wrong when we were in government. Immigration, the tax burden being too high, and the answers that we were given were, oh, we need immigration for growth, or we need to raise taxes to pay for public services. And that's why I've said that we need to rewire the state.
But when will we get solid policies from Kemi Badenoch on these issues? Are we going to have to wait for the manifesto in 2029?
But we've already seen some policies. We've come out with policies on immigration. Every day, people say, when are we going to see the policies? The policies are there, more will come. We've talked about the tax burden being too high. How we fix it? We may have to change all of the taxes in the country. We may have to look at a few. But that needs real thinking, getting real economic experts, and then showing are working. It's not just, well, we're going to do this and we'll work it out later. That is how the country got itself into the mess that it's in, by announcements without plans. And that's not what Conservatives do.
Fair enough. Kemi Badenoch, thank you for coming into the studio today. We need to leave it there. Coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to an economic expert. I'm going to be speaking to Lord Moynihan about how Britain does achieve better growth than is currently being forecast by the IMF at least. And lots more still to come. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 6 063 225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
UK churches are under criminal attack. They reported 9,000 crimes within the last 3 years. In Bilton in Ainsty, lead theft from St Helen's ancient parish church roof caused significant water damage. 6 items were also stolen, including a historic pewter flask. Fearing reprisals, a church volunteer spoke anonymously about the impact of the crimes.
Financially, it just brings churches to their knees. It's hard enough now for churches to survive with dwindling congregations and ageing populations. Churches don't get any government money. There is no statutory funding which is available and comes into churches. So once you get theft, whether it's internal theft from items inside the church or lead from the roof, it's just a big expense. So any theft is hard to both administer and get over, apart from the trauma of losing items that historically are part of our heritage.
We need everybody to stand together on this. It doesn't matter if you're a person of faith or not. These buildings are so important to our country. They form the fabric of rural life up and down the great British countryside. They are community hubs. They are places that glue some really isolated communities together, a bit like our pubs. You know, these are precious parts of our heritage and we've got to protect them.
Theft and vandalism from rural religious sites are harder for the police to tackle.
We are so isolated, very remote, and churches are very often the focal point of communities. The Home Office funding formula really pays scant recognition of the challenges facing rural communities. Therefore, we don't have the resources big metropolitan areas have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning and welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Lots more still to come on the programme today. Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, will be here. What's his thoughts on the row engulfing the Labour Party following that Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman? I'll also be joined by former senior NATO official Nicholas Williams to discuss those meetings between President Trump, President Zelensky and Sir Keir Starmer in Rome yesterday. Lord Moynihan, the Conservative peer and businessman, will offer his thoughts on the IMF downgrading the UK's growth forecast. And Gerard Griffiths, whose mother Hilda was killed by a cyclist in 2022, will be here to discuss that potential change of law announced this week that could see cyclists who kill pedestrians face life sentences. We'll also get the latest on the breaking news out of Vancouver, where multiple people have been killed after a car rammed into crowds, with GB News' home and security editor Mark White.
Well, police in Vancouver have said that they do not believe that this was a terrorist attack. However, all other indications point to this being a deliberate act, a horrific event in the centre of the city.
But first, here's your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Camilla, thank you, and good morning to you. Just after 10 o'clock, let's bring you the latest then out of Vancouver, where we now know several people have been killed and others left injured in what officials say is a senseless attack at a street festival there. Witnesses described seeing a black SUV driving straight through the crowd, leaving bodies scattered, they say, along the road. The driver, believed to be a 30-year-old man, is now in custody as police are investigating what led to the deadly rampage. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says he is devastated and shocked by the horrific incident. More on that latest line from Vancouver with Mark White later this hour. Meanwhile, counter-terror police are investigating a dramatic armed attack in Leeds after 2 women were injured with a crossbow and firearm. It happened in broad daylight on Otley Road during the busy Otley Run pub crawl. Police found a 38-year-old man with self-inflicted wounds and arrested him at the scene. All 3 were taken to hospital with injuries not thought to be life-threatening. Both weapons were recovered, with officers now trying to uncover a motive. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper called it a serious, violent incident and praised the swift response of emergency services. A single white rose and the name Francis marked on the tomb of Pope Francis as new images show his final resting place beneath marble arches in Rome. He was buried at his favourite church, not the Vatican, in a private ceremony after Saturday's funeral, honouring his personal wish to rest in the basilica he visited often. Mourners queued from dawn today to pay their respects to the 88-year-old Pope, remembered for urging the world to build bridges, not walls. Attention now turns, though, to his successor, with the largest conclave in modern history expected to begin early next month. London could claim the title of the world's biggest marathon today as over 56,000 runners take on the 26.2-mile challenge. Among them, celebrities, MPs and a duo dressed as a slinky dog. Yes, you heard that correctly. And 103 record breakers chasing the titles like fastest crustacean and most pants worn. 18-year-old Lucy Jones will be the youngest to cross the start line, while 2 runners in their 80s have flown in from the US to take part. Emmerdale's Tony Adenshaw says it felt just right to run in memory of his late wife on what would have been their wedding anniversary today. And for those thousands tackling the marathon, it's sunshine and highs of 22 degrees all the way, and we're set to feel the heat into the rest of the week too. Forecasters are warning of a naturally warm spell supercharged by climate change. Temperatures could soar to 27 degrees by midweek, especially in London and East Anglia, peaking on Wednesday and Thursday. But a cold front is creeping in, and forecasters say it could clip temperatures before a full-blown heatwave takes hold. And the heat is unlikely to last, with the chance of meeting official heatwave conditions still touch and go. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at the top of the hour. Now, though, it's over to Camilla.
Thank you, Sam. Lots more coming up this morning. I'm going to be joined by the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, plus Conservative peer and businessman Lord Moynihan will be here to share his thoughts on the IMF downgrading the UK's growth forecast. And with news this week that cyclists who kill pedestrians could now face life sentences, Gerard Griffiths, whose mother Hilda was killed by a cyclist in 2022, will be here to discuss that potential change of law. But before all that, let's get an update on the situation unfolding in Vancouver with our Home and Security Editor, Mark White.
Well, Camilla, a terrible event that unfolded into the evening in Vancouver, early morning, our time, at a festival that was there to celebrate the Filipino culture within Canada in this western city. Hundreds, thousands attending this event when an SUV, a sports utility vehicle, ploughed right down the middle of a road where festival goers were there, lined on both sides of that particular road by food trucks. And it was a horrific scene. Emergency services responded very quickly, but there were just so many people that were badly injured, other people fatally injured, that we expect there will be a significant number who have died. As yet, the police are only saying that several people have died. Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, has said, "I'm devastated to hear about the horrific events at the Lapu-Lapu Festival in Vancouver earlier this evening. I offer my deepest condolences to the loved ones of those killed and injured, to the Filipino-Canadian community, and to everyone in Vancouver. We are mourning with you." Well, in terms of the motivation for this, the police in Vancouver have just said that they don't believe it was a terrorist attack. However, it does seem from all reports that this was a deliberate attack nonetheless. The images of that SUV are just shocking. The front of the SUV itself, all crumpled in because of the speed it was doing and the impact created by hitting human beings as it was careering for hundreds of metres down this road. The airbags on that vehicle deployed, and we know that a 30-year-old man said to come from the Vancouver area has been arrested. Well, many of the images are just too awful to be able to bring you. We can't bring you a short clip that was filmed by one of the festival goers as she pleads with paramedics to help.
There's a baby over there. Baby over under the truck.
And also a local councillor who rushed to the area on hearing what had happened. He was just really and understandably very, very upset.
I was here earlier. This was a fantastic day here in South Hill. Lapu Festival was amazing and everybody's having such a great time. And so I heard the news and came here. I'm pretty choked up. I don't even know what to say. This was a great day. Wonderful event. Huge community event. And have it end in tragedy like this, it won't break us or the community, but it's horrible.
Absolutely understand just how devastated Councillor Pete Fry is there. These vehicle-borne attacks, even if this is not terrorism in terms of the motivation, these deliberate car ramming attacks are all too common these days, and the net result is always absolutely horrifying.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark White. Yeah, God, the local politician there and his reaction, it's just there for the grace of God. Go all of us. Right, let's switch now to other foreign affairs. Joining me to discuss the scenes that unfolded in the Vatican yesterday is former senior NATO official Nicholas Williams. Lovely to see you this morning, Nicholas. Quite extraordinary, that photograph, wasn't it, of President Trump and President Zelensky in the Vatican. What do you make of it all?
Extraordinary, but it just goes to show how frantic the Europeans and the Ukrainians are to deflect President Trump from what they consider to be a disastrous peace proposal.
Is it disastrous?
It's not disastrous for the Russians.
No.
And the Russians and I think the United States have choreographed this week in order to put maximum pressure on Ukraine. But it is disastrous, not only for Ukraine, but for the whole idea of a rules-based order in Europe.
And just spell out why that is, in case people might not be across the detail, but what we're talking about here is a 7-point plan which seems to me to concede a huge amount of territory to Russia without any US security guarantee.
Well, it concedes a huge amount of territory. It concedes that Ukraine will never choose to belong to a securities organization like NATO. It neutralizes Ukraine. And the problem is that it's against all concepts that we've had in Europe on international law,
yes,
in terms of recognizing countries, in terms of recognizing or non-recognizing the aggression or the seizure of territory by aggression.
So what's your interpretation of what Trump has put on Truth Social about, basically saying, look, I think I'm being played by Putin. Putin isn't honouring the terms of this agreement. Missiles are still being fired at the Ukrainians. We've got to stop people dying. Is this Trump negotiating? Is this Trump having had the scales fall from his eyes, that this appeasement of Putin was never going to work because he's a dictator who likes killing his enemies? I mean, what's gone on here?
Well, I don't think it's a moment of clarity for Trump. It's a negotiating tactic. He's also under pressure from elements in the United States, even in the Republican Party, who see this as a historic turnaround in the United States commitment to Europe and commitment to the principles of international law and the principles of non-aggression and the principle of deterrence against Russia. So,
but then do you think that a deal could ever be achieved that would ever see Ukraine admitted to NATO? I mean, people like Trump argue in the first place that, in fact, Nigel Farage has argued this, that flirtations with admission to NATO of Ukraine poked the Russian bear in the first place.
Well, that's a long debate. But basically, this whole idea of taking NATO off the table means that Ukraine will be subject to whatever whim in terms of foreign policy Russia has for it. And it doesn't have freedom of maneuver. The one argument, crucial argument in favor of Trump is that he's recognizing reality.
Yes.
NATO countries at the moment are split in terms of NATO admission to Ukraine. Yes, they say in declaratory terms it will be a member someday, but they've never made much progress since 2008, when that commitment or a promise or vision was first made.
But although you don't like the look of this deal and you've spelled out exactly why that is, the pragmatic peacemaker has to concede territory to Russia.
And Ukraine, as I understand that what they're negotiating with the Europeans, is that they're quite flexible in terms of conceding some territory.
Yes, Crimea, for instance. Crimea's gone, isn't it?
But they don't want in advance to be told that they must sign up to a ceding of Crimea or the 4 oblasts.
But when Trump's having a go at New York Times journalists and all the rest of it on his Truth Social post, he does make one pertinent point, doesn't he? That Crimea was given away under Barack Obama and the Western world's watch. The Western world didn't do anything about it. He's now arguing, I'm having to clear up the mess that was left by a Western world basically turning a blind eye to a Russian invasion in 2014.
That's a very false and superficial depiction of the facts in 2014. The NATO system, the American system, Obama imposed sanctions and didn't recognize and didn't actually accept
while European nations are literally freebasing Russian oil and gas.
Yes, and that was the problem. And they thought, the European nations, that they could manage this. There were the Minsk agreements between France, Germany, Ukraine and Russia, and they thought that that was a diplomatic process that could have some weight with Russia. And so it's not true to say they gave it away in 2014.
What do you make of President Trump's boasts about winning a Nobel Peace Prize one day?
I'm not sure. He obviously, for him, Ukraine is a sideshow. The major issue is Iran. He's threatened Iran with war.
Yes.
Unless they come up with a peace deal. Russia, and this is the connection, he wants Russia to assure Iran that Iran will have a friend if the Americans renege on a peace deal with Iran. So he needs Russia for this Iran peace deal.
Even though Iran has been substantially weakened in
even though it's been
substantially
weakened, and this is what he feels is the opportunity.
This is the advantage he pushes home.
And so he doesn't care about Ukraine so much.
Although it's got to be a different deal with Iran than the previous nuclear deal, which he was constantly critical of.
What he hopes is that Iran will make concessions in terms of Hamas and Hezbollah and supporting the terrorists in terms of attacking Israel.
And what's the chances of that, do you think, Nicholas?
Nil.
So it's a fruitless exercise?
It's a fruitless exercise. It's an exercise in Trumpism, Trumpist illusion.
not painting a particularly positive picture for foreign affairs over the course of the next few weeks and months.
Well, this is a historic moment. It's a turning point.
OK. Nicholas Williams, thank you very, very much indeed for your very candid appraisal of world events. Coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to the Conservative peer and businessman Lord Moynihan. He's going to join me to reflect on the IMF slashing the UK's growth forecast. Rachel Reeves says it's all about Trump, but is it actually all about her budget? This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the economy now. Conservative peer and businessman Lord Moynihan joins me now in the studio. An expert on growth, I would say, Lord M, you are. So let's get into it then. Trump's tariffs, first of all. I mean, I appreciate we've got this 90-day pause. Do you think he'll reinstate them, or has he learned his lesson?
I think Trump overall is the good, the bad and the ugly. Good is his 100 executive orders, freeing up the US economy, sensible energy policy and so forth. And that's all good, and it's going to help America a lot, just like his last period of office did. The bad is the tariffs. Oddly enough, he says he hates the European Union, and he's trying to make the US like the European Union with all these tariffs.
Protectionist.
And it's going to hurt people, and the people it's going to hurt most is the Americans. The Federal Reserve Bank did a study on his last lot of tariffs. He did steel tariffs in 2019. They said, "Oh, well done, Trump. You created, you protected 1,000 jobs in the steel industry in America, and by the way, you destroyed 125,000 jobs in the downstream advanced steel manufacturing industries in the US.
Yeah.
So it's your own country you destroy with tariffs.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, does he really mean it? Or, as you say, this 90-day...
Well, it's hard to know. You know, I'm going to get rid of the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. Oh, I'm going to have the tariffs. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. The only thing he's been consistent on, and let's discuss this, is China. Surely it has been a good thing for the US president to basically expose this absolutely ridiculous addiction that we have had to cheap Chinese goods, often made using slave labour. That's why they undercut our industries. They don't play by the rules. You speak to somebody like James Dyson, they say the Chinese will just completely ignore intellectual property, knock off a version of My Air Wrap. These people don't play by the WHO or WTO rules, and therefore he should be taking on the Chinese.
Fair enough, but an awful lot of that manufacturing is moving out of China, to Vietnam, to India. Apple is moving all of its iPhone manufacturing to India, and that's not going to help the Rust Belt whatsoever. Back in America, they won't get any jobs from that, and steel won't come back, and all these basic industries won't come back, whatever happens, because as an economy grows and as you're trying to get your citizens richer and richer, you've got to move into the higher and higher value-added sectors. And to do that, you've got to educate really well, and education in America can be really awful, just like it can in this country be really awful, and it's going to be worse with the reforms Labour's putting in. Unless you have really well-educated and inspired people, you can't put them into the higher value-added jobs, because steel, if it ever is made in America, will be made behind a desk, you know, with a white-collar worker, not a blue-collar worker.
Well, let's bring it to the UK then.
Yes.
I mean, there's a quest now. We've got Nigel Farage being positively Trumpian and indeed Vancian in saying we need to re-industrialise and we need to be up the worker and all the rest of it. I mean, we crossed that Rubicon already. We're now a services economy. Are we going to start, you know, reinvigorating factories and going back to coal mining and all the rest of it? We're not, are we, John?
Well, definitely not going to do that, Camilla.
But we're sitting on this mountain of coal, and yet we were importing stuff in order to keep the blast furnaces going. I don't quite...
Having a doctrinaire energy policy, close down North Sea, close down all coal mines and so forth, is just silly. There is, on the more general issue of are we ever going to do manufacturing again, can we do more manufacturing, there is a way to do that, which basically says have a cluster around a university that has really good research, that produces R&D, like whatever, 3D printing, nanotubes, etc., neuroscience, and then start up companies. We're now talking about the supply side, which the IMF and the OBR and Labour all hate, start up companies that then can grow rapidly and produce jobs in those areas.
Yes.
And we could get a great deal of manufacturing benefit from those high value-added businesses.
I know, but who wants to start a company at the moment?
Precisely. Well,
I mean, Rachel Reeves is saying, oh, you know, Britain's current economic woes are as a result of world-changing events. They're not, are they?
No, not at all.
The IMF said it was domestic factors.
Yes.
So what's your reaction to
I
that?
gave a speech on Friday and I said, you know, stop blaming the energy spike, stop saying that inflation was created by external things, stop saying that it was the Russian war. It was us. We spent too much money on silly things, and we never pulled that spend back after COVID. We didn't have like a Sweden or a Florida strategy for COVID that would have let our economy keep going.
So you're blaming the
all
Tories
us.
for this as much as Labour?
I'm afraid so, and I said that very explicitly.
So where are we now? What would be your 3 top tips for growing the British economy if you were advising the Chancellor right now?
Well, the first thing is to start understanding where growth comes from.
Private sector, not public.
Private sector business, but it's from what's called the supply side.
Yeah.
And you were talking earlier about the IMF and having to downgrade its prediction. The IMF's always been very pessimistic about the UK under the Tories, and they always had to upgrade their forecasts. Suddenly they flipped when Labour came in, and they were very optimistic. Oh, we're going to grow at 1.5%, 2%. And so they're always having to downgrade.
You can't be suggesting the IMF is ideologically motivated, John.
Yes, I can.
Yes, indeed. All right.
what they hate is this idea. Supply side is a phrase that was used by Ronald Reagan and in the era when Art Laffer first came to fame. And it's a doctrine on the left that Art Laffer is stupid, and they all go, Art Laffer, ha, ha, and quickly try and suppress it. But every single day, I mean, yesterday in the Times, you see that the receipts from capital gains tax were down 10%.
Yes.
What Art Laffer says is...
Down 1.4 billion, I read, yeah.
So you put taxes up and tax rates up and tax receipts go down. And how can it do anything but that? How can the economy do anything but actually do much worse?
But what would you be slashing? If you give that advice, then what tax would you slash first? Would it be corporation tax?
Yes, it has to be taxes on business.
Right.
You've got to make it more attractive for people to come back to this country. The non-dom, getting rid of the non-doms was unbelievably stupid. It's not by any means the only bunch of people who are leaving this country.
No, but we need the wealthy to pay their fair share, John. This is the argument from Labour.
Again, under the Conservatives and Labour, they're utterly stupid. They just listen to their civil servants who have some kind of hate on Greek ship owners or French
anyone
bankers.
With money, perhaps. I mean, apparently one millionaire's leaving every 45 minutes and all the rest of it.
Exactly. So
you're quite wealthy, John. Why aren't you leaving?
Well, because I've been afforded the enormous privilege of having a small influence on what happens by being in the House of Lords, and
So you're sticking with it. I mean, can Britain turn this corner?
Yes. Funny enough, there was a text yesterday from it almost made me sort of my eyes prickle, from a chap who said, me and my wife, we've got a business of about 45 people in the Midlands, and we were about to pack it up and leave the country. And I've just read your book, and it's given me hope, and we're going to stay. And I thought, oh my God!
Oh no! Yes, you now need.
We got 4.5 more years of catastrophic, anarchic destruction by the Labour Party.
Well, final question: will the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, still be in post in a year's time?
I think probably yes, because who else is there?
And recession, yes or no, over the next 12
Definitely.
months? Definitely.
Yeah, I'm absolutely convinced. Certainly recession per capita.
Yes, so, I think we're already in that, though, but actual recession.
Yes, I'm thinking so too.
Lord Moynihan, thank you very much indeed for your clear-eyed thinking on the economy this morning. Coming up next, I'm going to be joined by the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden. Looking forward to that. Don't go anywhere.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. From 11, only on GB News.
We're seeing on the screen now some of the elements of the hoard. Some of the things that have been discovered have to do with transport. We've found quite a lot of wagons, haven't we, and wheels. Now, is this quite unusual?
It is, and, you know, we don't know, because we've got the iron tyres but not the wheels and the vehicles, whether these were wagons or chariots or both. But to the extent that some of them are almost certainly wagons, then that is a first for Iron Age Britain. So, you know, it's very interesting. And to find this quantity of objects together is really unusual.
Would you like to speculate on why so many objects have been found in one place?
Well, it could be that they are the remains of funeral pyres. There have been no human remains found with them, but we know that with, you know, one of the Iron Age rituals was to deface and burn objects which would then be presumably taken to the afterlife. It was at the side of the road leading up to the enormous Iron Age hill fort of Stannick, and maybe it's something like that. I like to think of it as potentially the Appian Way in Rome, where the tombs lined the road on the way into the city, but that's a bit fanciful.
And one of the things we can deduce from this is wealth, can we not?
Absolutely.
I mean, these people have jewellery, they have sophisticated household items, and they have these vehicles which are pretty sophisticated.
Yeah, exactly.
These were rich people.
They were, and the quality of the objects, the horse bits are quite oversized compared to what we normally find, and they are embossed with coral and enamel, and that, again, is unusual and indicative of wealth and trade links as far as the Mediterranean.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. We're just waiting for the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, to get mic'd up in his central London location. So before we speak to him, Lord Moynihan continues to join me in the studio. And we were talking earlier, Lord Moynihan, about you suggesting that the best way to get growth going was to cut business taxes. Very much Liz Trussian approach to the economy. Has she been vindicated to some extent, despite the mini-budget and the calamitous exit from power that she had to endure?
Well, let's look at what she was trying to do. She was trying to cut corporate taxes, business taxes, employment taxes, so that people who wanted to start up businesses or hire more people were confident that if they did that, they wouldn't have a disaster. And people who wanted to be employed were confident that they'd make reasonable money. And that came to an end when Liz was replaced by Rishi Sunak. And ever since then, both Conservatives and Labour have been testing to destruction the idea that, no, you can raise taxes all over the place, particularly business taxes, because apparently people won't mind about that. And therefore, when you do that, you'll get lots more tax in. You can spend money on, your pals in the railway unions and all of that, and everything will be fine. We've tested that to destruction, and the economy is going down and down, and it's going to get worse and worse. And tax receipts have not gone up, as we were talking about capital gains tax. But what is happening is there is this enormous flood of people leaving the country. And it's not just millionaires, it's not just non-doms, it's 20-something people, high flyers in the City of London, ambitious people. It's hairdressers going off to Dubai. And we're not just moving, some of our best people are fleeing the country. Sectors are fleeing the country. Private education is moving to the United Arab Emirates. If you send your kid to a private school in Scotland, why not fly them over to Dubai, where there's no VAT, where they don't teach woke nonsense and so forth. Part of our whole medical sector, because the NHS is so lousy, Turkey is taking a huge amount of business from us with people flying over there.
So should Kemi Badenoch, I put this to her earlier because we spoke to the Conservative leader, she should just say now one of her economic policies is to slash corporation tax. She should say, we made a mistake. As Tories, we made a mistake. We defied the Laffer curve. We need to slash corporation tax, not least in light of Trump's tariffs, make us more conservative. Oh, I can't let you answer that question because Pat McFadden's with me. Lord Moynihan, thank you very much indeed for your expertise this morning. Pat McFadden, thank you very much indeed for joining me on GB News. Lovely to see you, as is ever the case. Now, tell us, what's been discussed between Keir Starmer, President Zelensky, President Trump? Can you just update us on those very significant talks at the Vatican yesterday?
Well, it was a very powerful image, wasn't it, seeing President Trump and President Zelensky speaking one-to-one like that. And the aim here is to get a stop to the fighting, of course, but from the UK government's point of view, it doesn't stop there. What we really want to see is a peace that lasts, a peace that's secure, so that we don't have a stop just so that President Putin can bide his time and maybe start up again in a year or 2 years or whenever. So that is really at the heart of all these discussions, is how to bring this war to an end, which everybody wants, but how to do so in a way that lasts.
Pat, I've just been speaking to a former NATO official, Nicholas Williams, who says that the peace deal as it stands now is a complete sellout, that it isn't what Ukraine needs, you know, a complete concession really to Russia on territory and no US guarantee in response.
Well, Ukraine will have to agree a peace deal. I mean, if they don't agree, there won't be one. And we are an ally of Ukraine, and so it's important that Ukraine is at the table. Ukraine is part of the negotiations. It's about their future, after all. So they will have to agree any deal, and I'm sure there'll be discussions in Ukraine about that, about what they want to agree, about what they don't want to agree. But they've got to sign up to any peace deal.
Let's just move on to more domestic matters. Now, Rachel Reeves, your colleague as Chancellor, keeps on blaming world affairs on the current rather difficult state of Britain's finances. And yet the IMF has said it hasn't got anything to do with Trump or Russian invasions or increased energy costs. It's actually because of the budget. They've cited domestic factors. So can we accept that, unfortunately, the budget has caused people in the UK to suffer economically?
I think the budget fixed a very difficult economic inheritance, and it had a lot of things to put right. And it's because of the budget that we're now seeing the beginnings of a turnaround in some areas. For example, NHS waiting lists falling for 6 months in a row. What a contrast to recent years, down by 200,000 instead of going up and up and up every year. We've got more diagnostic and treatment centres in local communities, 4.5 million new tests and diagnostics there. That's up 50% on the period over the last year. So I accept that not every decision in that budget was popular, but it was the foundation for the turnaround that we're beginning to see in the NHS, the capacity to get more teachers into our schools, to recruit more police officers in local communities because people are really worried about crime in their local areas. And so it was a necessary step in order to fix things. And I accept we need to do more on the delivery side, and we will as things go forward, but we're starting to see some results of that in some of the fields I've mentioned.
But it's not just unpopular decisions in the budget, is it? It's bad ones. For instance, we learned today, I've just discussed it with Lord Moynihan, that capital gains tax receipts are down 1.4 billion. That's not a successful budgetary decision, is it?
Well, look, everybody can have their opinion on the decisions, but we had to sort out the public finances.
Well, how does losing 1.4 billion in capital gains tax receipts sort out the public finances?
Well, overall, the budget increased receipts. We've seen that. That's provided the funds for the public services that I've been talking about.
How much has the budget increased receipts by in comparison to that 1.4 billion? What's the figure on that?
Well, the budget increased overall receipts by some tens of billions, and that's the money that's going into the NHS, that's going into our schools, that's enabling us to recruit police officers, that's going to be the basis for the capital investment in transport in the future, and the other things that the country needs going forward.
OK. We interviewed Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, earlier on the show, and she said Keir Starmer was a liar because he had previously said that women can have a penis, or at least some women. I think 0.1% of women could have a penis. And now he seems to be saying that, oh, no, he always agreed with the Supreme Court that trans women aren't women. He's fibbing, isn't he?
No, that's not the case. Look, we welcome the court judgment that came out last week, and there's been some new guidance from the EHRC as well to authorities and how they should implement this. And, you know, we'll take that forward now that the guidance has been published.
But he once said that trans women were women, and he once suggested that 1 in 1,000 women can have a penis. So he wasn't aligned with the Supreme Court judgment at all, was he? Why is he pretending that he said something different to what he said? It's just a lie.
All the way through this, look, all the way through this, he's tried to treat people with dignity and respect, and we've still got to do that in this debate. and in responding to the judgment. That's what he's tried to do. That's what he said at Prime Minister's questions the other day. And that's what we've all got to do here.
Okay.
We've got some clarity from the court, which is welcome. And we've got some new guidance, which will have to be implemented now in the fields of sport and all sorts of other areas.
All right. In the spirit of treating everyone with dignity and respect, why won't he apologise to his former Labour colleague, the MP for Canterbury, Rosie Duffield?
Well, look, I think Rosie left the Labour Party for a number of reasons.
Well, she was bullied out of the party because of her transgender views. That's what she says. That's why she left the party. She was gender critical. She got a load of problems from the whips and others. She couldn't get a conversation with Keir Starmer. She felt forced out. And now, quite rightly, she's been vindicated by the Supreme Court and is asking why on earth the Prime Minister, if he wants to respect everyone and give them dignity, she hasn't received a fulsome apology.
I mean, when I read her piece in Times, I think it was yesterday, I think she said she wouldn't be interested in it, and that she wouldn't find it meaningful. And her letter of resignation, I was sorry to see her go, but her letter of resignation outlined a number of different policy dissatisfactions. This may have been one, but it wasn't the only one. And so I think she left for a number of reasons. And you know, when we stood at the election last year, we said we would protect single-sex spaces. We want to do that. That protection for single-sex spaces was in our own Labour Equality Act from back in 2010, and that's what we'll do going forward.
Yvette Cooper, your colleague as Home Secretary, has vowed to smash the gangs, and yet we understand that Labour is going to pay landlords 5 years of rent to accommodate asylum seekers. How on earth does that help to smash the gangs? And how on earth does the party of the worker get itself into the situation that it is providing housing for asylum seekers while people living in Britain legally are struggling to get on the housing ladder?
There's nothing new about the Home Office renting private accommodation. It's been doing it for years.
But for 5 years at a stretch?
For a long time. It happened under Alaska. Well, I don't know what the length of the past contracts was, but this is not new. It is not new for the Home Office to be renting private accommodation. And what she's trying to do, very importantly, is deal with the situation where we've got hotels in many towns, including my own in Wolverhampton, where the public don't want to see the local hotel used in this way. We're trying to get the backlog down instead of ignoring it, as the Tories did, and pretending it's not there. That was a recipe for more and more people housed in temporary accommodation, whether it's hotels or private housing, for years and years on end. We're starting to tackle that backlog. Hopefully we can close more of these hotels, and hopefully we can get this backlog dealt with, as well as doing more to stop and try to combat the problem at source, which is the trafficking gangs themselves. But on this issue of renting private accommodation, the Home Office has been doing it for a long, long time.
All right, Pat McFadden, we need to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for your time this morning on GB News. Coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to Gerard Griffiths, whose mother was killed by a cyclist in 2022. He'll join me to discuss a proposed change to the law which would see cyclists who kill pedestrians by acting dangerously on the roads face life behind bars. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
High pressure is in charge mainly across Europe at the moment, but its positioning is leading to some slightly different conditions. Out across Iberia, there's plentiful amounts of sunshine and a really lovely day to come tomorrow in particular. There are some showers, though, lingering around Italy, parts of the Balkans, just to watch out for. And there's quite a keen breeze developing from the Black Sea down through into the Aegean, so it is going to be quite fresh along some of those Greek islands. But with high pressure sticking around, it is going to be remaining fairly settled into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, very good morning. This is your GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. It's a slight north-south contrast as we head into this second half of the weekend. There are a couple areas of low pressure just skirting Northern Ireland and Scotland to provide a cloudier, breezier and damper theme overall today. Outbreaks of rain will be on and off here throughout. But with high pressure in charge across the bulk of England and Wales, it's going to be a drier and brighter day to come here. There is some early morning mist and fog patches around, but they'll be clearing off fairly readily. So certainly once we head towards late morning and into the afternoon, there'll be plenty of sunshine beginning to develop. In that sunshine though, temperatures are going to be responding, and so we're going to be seeing temperatures climb close towards that 20 degrees Celsius mark, if not 22 or 23 across some parts of southeastern England. So it is going to be feeling rather warm if you're running the Manchester and London marathons. The cloud across the north will hold temperatures back a little bit here, but certainly still 16 to 18 degrees Celsius is above average for this point in the year. Rain, though, always lingering across parts of northern Scotland, and the frontal system associated with this is really going to be very slow moving as we head into the overnight period. So there's always the continued risk of some outbreaks of rain across these far northern areas into the start of Monday morning as well. Elsewhere, though, a dry night to come, and underneath the clearest skies, we'll see temperatures drop down towards mid, perhaps low single figures, so maybe a patchy grass frost for parts of England and Wales first thing tomorrow morning. But as we head throughout the day, this rain in the north is slowly going to progress even further northwards, and that's going to allow that sunshine to permeate into more areas of Northern Ireland, the far north of England, southern and eastern Scotland as well. So for many of us, Monday is going to be a very fine day overall. Plentiful amounts of decent weather in there if you are heading outside, and again seeing 20 to 23 degrees Celsius, and that's only the start. As we head into the rest of next week, temperatures will be climbing even further, perhaps towards the high 20s on Wednesday. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
On Thursday the 1st of May, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections,
mayoral elections and one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night,
live around the country,
as the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m. on Friday morning, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. on Thursday.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back. With me now is Gerard Griffiths, whose mother Hilda was killed by a cyclist in 2022. We've campaigned about this issue. When I was at the Sunday Express, we campaigned about this a lot, and I'm really interested in this because in the case of your mum, she was hit by a cyclist doing 29 miles an hour.
That's correct, yes.
In a 20-mile-an-hour zone. But the person who did it was let off without a conviction because the police said that they couldn't really prove the speed he was going.
Because bicycles don't have to adhere to speed limits because they're not mechanically propelled vehicles, supposedly, even though you can go on Google and find a bike mechanic, you know, like, that will fix your bike. They're not beholden to have to adhere to speed limits, even though the man in question had a cycling computer, which is GPS, and the police said that they can't guarantee that GPS is accurate.
Yeah,
because
what's the point of having a Strava or similar, which literally records? I mean, this is what's happened, I think, is back in the old days when somebody would pootle along on a bike, try and get from A to B, that's been transformed by the emergence of cycle lanes and indeed devices like Strava and others, where people are almost treating the streets of London, certainly, and it's the same in other towns, as velodromes. I mean, just talk me through what happened to your mum and the backdrop to this.
Well, basically, it was a lovely sunny morning, middle of June, and she was up the park. She always goes to Regent's Park early in the morning with her little dog, and she was on her way home from the park. She exited the park, and witness account said that she watched one set of cyclists go by. I mean, Regent's Park is used as sort of exercise place for cyclists in groups. And she waited for one group to go by, and then she was crossing, and the other group were coming at her. Obviously, they were all travelling at the same speed because they're inches from each other's wheels. And 1 and 2 went round her, number 3 hit her, and the 4th one evaded it completely. There was a shout which obviously startled her, and she was basically rushed to St Mary's A&E in ICU for 3.5 weeks. And 8 weeks later, she passed away.
It's absolutely horrific. I mean, in many respects, you might think, oh, well, I can't understand that somebody can be killed by a bike. But at that speed...
Well, when she was in St Mary's in intensive care, most of the nurses that you have round the clock, like care, most of the nurses would question whether they'd read their notes properly, whether it was a bike or a motorbike.
What, because of the extent of her
injuries, yeah.
And so we've got this new proposal to change the law on this, which would make it, if we see cyclists that have been dangerously cycling and then cause death, that they could be jailed for life. What's your reaction to that proposal?
I know it's a big thing, life, but it's just more about the sentencing guidelines and parameters. Very few drivers probably get convicted for life for killing someone on the road, but it just brings it into line with motor vehicles now, because it doesn't matter whether or not you're hit and killed by a van, a lorry, a bus, a car or a bike. Like you're no less dead because it's a bike.
No, that's right.
And the grief is still the same.
Also, it might send a clear message. There are some people who are on their bikes, they may be commuting to work or whatever, and they are going at speed.
Well, it's
changed. The atmosphere around cycling, I think, has changed. People in full lycra. What message is yours to them, Gerard, as they sort of cycle around at these speeds, perhaps thinking they've got the right to continue because they've got special cycle paths?
Well, I just think you've got to change, look at your attitude, and your journey's no more important than the person who may be crossing the road in front of you or the car that wants to turn that you don't want to give up your momentum for. And if you want to go through a set of traffic lights and potentially hit someone, there's now going to be, hopefully, laws put in place that is clearer for the police to bring prosecutions across. Because at the moment, the law of wanton and furious riding from 1861 was brought in, like that governs bikes from 160 years ago.
Yes.
140 years ago. And that's not adequate enough.
So that's the loophole that the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, is trying to plug here and actually make cyclists more accountable for their own actions.
That's it, yeah.
Just a quick question as well, just because I saw somebody sort of shooting around on an e-scooter the other day, didn't have a helmet on. I just thought it looked very, very dangerous. Shouldn't this law actually also have the scope to cover things like scooters?
Yeah, I think it should. Anything on the road, anything on the road is a vehicle. So it should just be any vehicle. You should all have the same laws governing, like responsibility. There's already things in the highway code, you have to be wary of pedestrians and that. But it's just a matter of once all vehicles are under the same umbrella, then there's clear for everyone.
And very briefly, do you believe in registration plates for bikes? At least they would then be picked up by speed cameras, potentially.
I can't, it'd be difficult to bring in, but, at some point in the future with technology, who knows, like QR codes and things on the back of whatever, but I wouldn't say that would be, like a bike camera and have a great big sort of plate on it, but, if it's identifiable, Lion bikes and so forth are identifiable to how like they're used.
Yes.
So there's obviously technology there somewhere.
All right. Gerard, thank you very much indeed. Obviously sorry for the loss of your mum, but your campaigning is clearly making a difference if we've got this law change in the offing. Thank you for joining me on GB News this morning. Well, coming up next, we've got Sunday with Michael Portillo. Michael, hopefully, is going to join me now from Paddington. What have you got coming up on the show today?
Good morning, Camilla. We'll be considering the ethics of whether Britain should applaud a peace imposed on Ukraine by President Trump, even if we think it's unjust. We'll be looking back 80 years to 1945, the last days of the Second World War in Europe. We're looking at the risk to academic standards at Cambridge University, where the authorities are worried about a culture of overwork, and we'll be asking whether private patrons can replace the taxpayer in helping composers of new classical music.
Sounds brilliant. You're resplendent in red today. Good to see it. I'll be back next week at 9:30. Coming up next, as we've said, is Michael Portillo. Please do enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you next week.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning,